Michael Kimondo, who is the asset manager from Fusion Capital. Thank you very much, Michael, and welcome to the program. And I just want to understand, what is the nature of this particular acquisition?
Thank you very much, Zawadi. I think when you look at it back, Chase Bank went into liquidation in 2016, and what Central Bank of Kenya and KDIC has been trying to do is to get a suitor who can buy or manage the bank. And what has happened, as was reported recently, is that State Bank of Mauritius has offered to buy the bank to the tune of 75% of the assets and liabilities. And what this means is that the depositors who have been waiting for the last 2 years will be able to access to up to 75% of their deposit. However, that is structured, and they'll be able to access this amount in a period of 3 years. The first, on day one, as soon as the bank is reopened, which according to the central bank governor says is in a matter of a few weeks, the depositors will access 37.5% of their total of the initial deposit. Then after that, the 37.5% will be accessed in a period of 3 years. Now, what SBM, or State Bank of Mauritius, has done is what is commonly known as bad bank, good bank. So they've selected the good bank, what we're calling a carve-out. They have carved out the good asset of the bank, and that is what they want to
So then help me understand, what happens to the other 25%? If I had 100 million in Chase Bank, and now I understand I will only get back 75 million, what happens to my 25?
No, the way to look at it is there are many options that would have happened, and the worst case scenario would have been this bank going into liquidation. However, they have already said we're going to access 75%. Then the 25% really is not going to liquidation, because Chase Bank, the old Chase Bank, still remains, and their assets are going to remain with Chase Bank. Remember, we've just said that SBM is only taking 75%. And also to note is that anything related to Chase Bank shareholders, for example, Rafiki Microfinance, which they own 75%, and Chase Assurance, which they also own 100%, will not be moving. So as they continue to collect and to trade with the old Chase Bank, at time that will be advised, the 25% will be actually accessed. What what the governor has said is that there isn't going to be a haircut, or rather there isn't going to be any loss. The 25% is still going to be accessed, only that the time hasn't been shared.
Now, does that mean that there will be at some point the possibility that this institution will come back into circulation as a brand name Chase Bank, or will that now go and probably just operate now under SBM? No.
Remember, SBM Bank Holdings bought Fidelity Bank, and this SBM Bank Kenya is the one that's buying the 75% and will trade as SBM Bank. Chase Bank, which is in receivership as we speak now, will still remain. And I think the last option would be to liquidate, and from the look of things, I don't think they're going to go the liquidation way. So we might, we may be able to see Chase Bank still coming back, probably at a lower level, and continue to trade, because the license hasn't been revoked.
Now, for the purposes of the depositors whose money or deposits are with the institution, just help us understand who the State Bank of Mauritius are. Because I think for most of us, we came to know about it when we heard they are now acquiring a stake in Chase Bank. Who are they?
Good. State Bank of Mauritius is one of the biggest banks, actually the biggest bank in Mauritius. They are listed in the stock exchange, and actually the the government owns about 30% directly, and through state corporation they own an extra 40%. So I would say they own slightly above about 70% of the bank. In terms of size, it's one of the biggest bank, and I would actually would only rank second to KCB. It would be, in terms of asset side, it would be actually rated as bigger than Equity, but slightly smaller than KCB. And in terms of tiers, if we were to put that in the way we classify banks here, tier 1, 2, and 3, it would be classified as a tier 1 bank.
Now, you mentioned KCB, and that is very interesting because KCB took over the management of Chase Bank when it went into receivership for quite some time. And at some point, there were conversations about KCB's intention, to buy out Chase Bank from receivership. What happened? At what point did they backtrack and allow CBM to take over?
As you know, this was actually an open invitation. The central bank actually floated the expression of interest and invited various parties who were interested in acquiring the bank, and they were actually open whatever structure that would be offered. We understand from the information that has been shared by the governor is that several suitors came on board, but the person who did offer the best solution for the bank was actually State Bank of Mauritius. And as you know, it's an open field. Whoever offers the best price wins the guard.
Now, my last question to you is two-pronged. The first is, how likely is SBM going to weather the storm? The Kenyan banking industry is very interesting. We have a cap law in force, which lending institutions do not really agree with. And of course, what opportunity did SBM see in Chase Bank, which other institutions in Kenya, who probably are more capital strong, did not see?
Thank you, Zawadi. I think the way to look at it is, it's true, yes, we have an interest rate cap in Kenya at 14%. But then when you compare the same with what they have in Mauritius, they're actually lending at 6%. And the deposit is about 1 point something. So their margin, the interest margin, is about 4 point something percent. Whereas in Kenya, we have a ceiling of 14% and a floor of 7%. So the net interest margin is about 7%. You see, for them, they can see that opportunity. That is one. It's true, yes, some of the other challenges that they will face, yes, is competition from fintech. We're the first one to do M-Pesa here, and that's actually something they'll be fighting with. But also the opportunity for them is the fact that they have been able to acquire Chase Bank, which had very well SME, a very good SME book, and well spread branches. So for them, it will be a quick way to grow. It's like going up a building. You can decide to take stairs or you take a lift. And for SBM, what they have done is to take a lift using acquisition of Chase Bank. But also one of the things that I think that we should also note is how this acquisition has happened. State SBM management are seems to be very, very smart, because they are acquiring quality assets at almost 0 shillings, because they're not paying anything. It was disclosed that as at June, as Chase Bank shareholders was negative, and what SBM will be doing is to take over the assets, including cash that is still held with the central bank, and some financial instruments, and then match it with equivalent liabilities. And also to note that of the loan book, because the liabilities will be the last thing they will be picking here. or the asset will be the loan book will be the last thing they'll be picking. What they'll be doing is cherry picking. So they'll have very quality assets at almost 0 shillings.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I was speaking to Michael Kimondo, who is the head of asset management at Fusion Capital, unpacking for us the nature of the deal between the State Bank of Mauritius and Chase Bank. SBM is acquiring a 75% stake in Chase Bank Kenya, and depositors in the next 3 years will have access to 75% of their deposits. Not some good news, I should say. Now,